You're at the end of the world. Supplies are steadily dwindling, and water sources dried up or became useless long ago. There's a marauding horde in the streets, and you and your ragtag group of survivors have to use any means necessary to live. What would you do? What actions would you take to survive this wasteland? Now, enough about the Blackrock College corridors. What I mean to tell you all today is, who here has read, watched, or played any form of media including zombies? Go on, don't be shy. Put up your hands. Okay, there's some of you. I can work with that. You see, one thing that irks me about zombie media is that people see it as nothing more than gory, one-dimensional, uninspired cash grabs. Admittedly, that's because a lot of them are, but I hope today that I can show all of you that zombie apocalypse movies aren't just cinema fodder, and we shouldn't just bury them under these false narratives we've given them, because burying zombies nearly never works in the first place anyway. Now, to begin, I just want to give you all a crash course in Zombies 101. We all ready? Great, let's go. The genre first started in 1968 with the release of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which painted the image of a world where society had broken down, where nothing remained of the previous lives, and where brain-hungry humans roamed the streets searching for their next meal. Now, this film really did manage to paint an image of a zombie apocalypse, but it's important that it wasn't the start of zombies, because zombies as a concept had existed for centuries in Haitian voodoo magic, or in general, humans imagining what life after death really meant. Now, as well as this, there's also multiple other ways that we've told these stories with harrowing moral dilemmas, such as whether to save someone in a crisis, whose life is more valuable, and whether actions such as murder or theft are more acceptable in a world where things are so much more ruthless. An example I'll always go back to is The Walking Dead game by Telltale. And I'm sure many of you are aware of The Walking Dead game, but in the early 2010s, it launched a spin-off game of the same name. And in format, it was an action-adventure, choose-your-own-style experience. Now, if any of you are wondering what that's like, it's sort of like the video game version of those books where you flip to page 58 to figure out what happens to your character. It's like that. And for me, it really shone as an example of how harrowing the setting can be, where instead of just watching characters commit atrocities from behind the screen, you call the shots. You're the one behind all of your actions. And as a result, it's more horrifying to watch unfold in front of you. Now, I have a story to tell about this, which is a little bit embarrassing, but I'll say it anyway, which is that when I was playing through this game, I was in an admittedly fairly difficult situation, and I had a choice in front of me. I had two text boxes, and I had a bar slowly trickling down, and with every second it was urging, begging me to make my decision. So what I did was I sat up, paused the game, and went into another room so I wouldn't have to think about it. Yeah, not proud of that, but at the same time, it really showed me how harrowing and just how terrifying it can be, because I'm not a very indecisive person, I like to think, but if I go to SuperValue, I can barely decide on what brand of bread to buy, let alone decide on the fate of someone's life, even if they're in a game. Walking to choose bread, yeah, but Walking Dead, no. Anyway, moving on from that and kind of into the real world is that some of these themes aren't as detached from our world as we like to think. Now, I know what you're thinking. No, the zombie part of zombie apocalypses aren't real yet, but I suppose there's elements of this apocalypse of societies breaking down, resources such as medicine and food being scarce, and violence erupting in the streets. These are things that are happening and are lived experiences. When that wall of fiction is broken, it's a lot more terrifying to think about how this is things that actually happen. These are events that occur to people. You see, the thing that scares me and scared me the most out of all of these books, films, and games It was never the hordes of zombies running, mawing, and gnashing after our protagonists. It was never the fantasy dystopian settings of skyscrapers covered in ivy. It was the scenarios that could have existed in real life. The ones that didn't need zombies, where all they needed was human spirit brought to its absolute limits. Okay, so that was a bit dark, but going back from that, there's also a lot of elements of zombie apocalypse media that manage to find the lighter side of things. I'll explain that in a sec, I promise. Which is that there's subgenres, which I'm going to name now, such as zomcom, zombie comedy, and get this, rom-zomcom, romantic zombie comedy. I'm not making that up. If you want proof, you can watch that film, Warm Bodies 2013, and you can send your complaint to me afterwards. We live in a golden age of film. Moving on from that, it really is kind of amazing to see how such a devastating, dark scenario can lead to such weirdly diverse themes blossoming from it. Like Dawn of the Dead, which explores the theme of consumerism, because of course it does. And as well as that, how movies like Warm Bodies can somehow outclass Twilight and Hallmark Christmas films in terms of romance, which admittedly is not a high bar, but I still think it's impressive that it can do that. Anyway, moving on to the crux of this speech entirely, is that I hope I've at least told you all something, or imparted anything about how much I love zombie apocalypse media. And for me, I'm going to be going backstage now and considering whether this is healthy. So, thank you so much for listening to the speech, and I hope you've enjoyed it.